Hi, and as you can see, I've been working on the witch doll now, and she's stuffed, and her parts are sewn on. She looks a little bit like a Frankenstein monster right now, but I think by the time I get the needle sculpting done on her face and get her painted up and put some clothes on her, and some hair, she'll look much better. At least I hope so. And with that being said, I don't really think I have any other tips. The neck was a little bit, from the head was too thin coming into the head, into the body. So what I did was I put it together and I kind of did a running stitch and cinched that together, and then I just did a band of muslin and I sewed that around the outside edge just to bulk it up and add some thickness. On hindsight, the arms are a little too big for the legs, but once they're dressed and she's sitting or holding on to things, it won't be quite that obvious. And yeah, I think that's about it for me for today, so I will be back as things progress. Thanks for sticking with me. Okay, well, we're at the stage. No, she is all together now, all her joints are sewn, that I want to do the needle sculpting on her face. I haven't done this in a long time, so I have my fingers crossed. And I'll show you some of the things I usually use. Now, doll sculpting needles, there are actually needles that are specifically called soft sculpture needles. And as you can see by my hand, these are probably, yeah, they're 3 inches long. And then there are, Peacemakers have doll sculpting needles. And yeah, there's all kinds of needles you can use. A heavier duty, larger eye needle will work. Then there are, if you're doing a much bigger doll, there's bigger needles, all the way up to heavier gauge needles. And I actually have a needle that's like 9 inches long. So depending on what you need, it's all out there and available for you. Usually when I needle sculpt a larger doll, like even my witches that I showed previously, I might use a waxed linen upholstery thread. But you can see that that is pretty thick thread. So I don't think I'm going to needle sculpt the face with that this time because that face is rather small. So then I was thinking I have this artificial sinew, which I used to use when I made beaded doll faces, and it comes on a spool and you cut a length off, and then it's actually fairly thick layers of thread that are all waxed or stuck together, and you can split it and pull pieces off, kind of like embroidery floss, only this is really sticky stuff. I'm not going to use this either because then I realized, and the reason, well, I should say the reason I do this is because normal, even floss or sewing thread breaks very easy, whereas this silamide doesn't break. And this heavier upholstery thread doesn't break either as easy, and it's waxed and it's really tough stuff. But this beading silamide is nice and thin. It looks like sewing thread, but it's really tough too. It doesn't break. So I'm going to use my silamide beading thread. And if you haven't tried that for beading, give it a try. Like I said, I usually use spider wire when I'm stringing, but if I was going to sew, the silamide works really well. I only have it in size A, and that's a white. which is good. Most colored beads, you know, don't show white if you're sewing it onto fabric anyway. Okay, so let's see. First things first, I'm going to measure just like the first stitch I take is going to be the bridge of the nose across this way. And it kind of defines where the eyes are going to be. But when I'm sewing, I also have to get from the front of the head to the back of the head. So you can kind of see that this needle I'm going to struggle with because it's not really long enough. This is maybe 2 inches. Let me see. Yeah, this is about a 2-inch needle. So that one isn't really going to work too well for me. So I'm going to, and this is longer. This really doesn't go with this set. This is actually a little bit longer than these. But I'm going to take one of these 3-inch ones, and I'm just going to measure it back to front, and that's going to be a lot easier. And I won't have a lot of extra to have to fight with either. So let me move the package out of the way. And I also have my hemostats, my small pair, and my large pair. These or a pair of pliers could come in handy if you start to struggle with pulling your needle through, because you are going to be going through all that batting, or I'm going to be going through all that batting, and I don't want you to have to sit there and watch me struggle too much. Okay, thread the needle. Now what I do is I usually get a pair of scissors and cut this. Generally, I'm going to use a double thickness. Generally, I think I would only use a single. And all I'm going to do is tie a knot at the base. And you're going to do that however you tie knots. That's how I tie a knot. And here we go. Let's see. I'm going to put my magnifiers on just so I can see what I'm doing better, since I'm going to try to keep it within the frame. Alright, so this is where the eyes are going to be, just above, or right about at the bridge of the nose. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the right side. If you're left-handed, you start on the left side, or from wherever it's comfortable for you. Now I have a knot in my thread, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to the back of that head, and I'm going to take a stitch. I'm going to have that covered with hair, and it's not going to matter. Now if I was going to bury the knot, that would be great, but I'm not going to bury the knot. I'm going to actually take a stitch through the loop, kind of like the loop method in cross stitch, and that's going to hold my knot secure in the back. I'm going to turn the doll back over, and I'm aiming for like up here somewhere where the inside corner of the eye and the bridge of the nose would be. So I'm going to go through the back of the head and push out towards the front. Okay, just a little, that was coming out just a little too low, so I'm going to pull back. I'm just looking at it to see what I think. And that's okay. So let me grab my hemostats. I'm just going to pull the thread up. So now I've gone from the back of her head through her head, and I've come out here kind of at the corner of her eye. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in. Well, actually, I'm trying to think the best way to do this. I think I may go across the bridge of the nose, underneath, inside the fabric. I'm going to dig down a little bit and pull some of that fiber fill up, so it's between my needle and the fabric here. And I'm going to try to come out on the exact opposite side, about the same distance from the thread as I started. You see the nose, the seam right there? I'm trying to go in and out about equal distance. And I'm just going to pull the thread through. Okay. Now I'm going to move a few threads towards the top of the head, pretty much in the same area, because I just want to go back to the back of the head and pull the corner of the eye, which I got to get my hemostats again because my hands just aren't doing this. Where your thread comes out in the back of the head really isn't as important. It's just your anchor. So I pulled that. And now I'm going to move over. I'm going to go through the back of the head again. And this time I'm going to try to come out. This looks a little off, this side compared to this side, but it's going to even up once I go back down from this side. Okay, don't get caught on her pointiness. And what I want it to do is I want to make this come out on the other side of her eye. But see, I don't want her eye somewhere out here in her cheek. I have to find kind of a happy place to put the other side of her eye. And the general rule of, I don't know if it's anatomy or what you would like to call it, I guess anatomy, is the space between the size of this eye should be about the same as the size of this eye, and the space in between the eyes should be one eye wide. So you put an eye, your space here is an eye wide, and then your other eye is over here. And that's if you're going kind of for, you know, human, something that people will accept, they'll recognize. If you're going for something supernatural or different, well, then you're going to do it in some other proportion. And I'm just going to pull back through. So I have her eye. Yep, trying to get it so you can see. If you can see, this is the outside corner of her eye, and this is the inside corner of her eye. Now I'm going to come back over here and try to make that so it's the same level. So back in through the back of the head. This is why you want to stuff fairly firmly, because you are using all of that as anchor, and you don't want to smush it all in. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up, and then I'm just going to go back down and back out, pull it tight, and then I'm going to come back up, and now I'm trying to make the outside corner of this eye. And sometimes it's the tricky part is making it about the same size. So I'm going to use, I have these like curved embroidery nail type scissors, and I know that this eye over here looks like it's about I don't know, it's about, focus, about that wide, and so I want this eye to be about the same width, and I'm almost there. I need to go out just a little bit more. I think that's about it. So I pull it up, and then I will go back, go north towards the top of the head a little bit, and back in. Grab my hemostats, pull it, and there. She now has 2 eyes. And this thread has gotten pretty short, and so I am going to make a knot in the back of the head where I ended, and just tie it off. And here are my dogs. I had a plumber here earlier, so they're on high alert. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this thread. And I will I will thread another length. Because now we're going to work on forming the nose. So let me get the needle threaded. I'm going to do another double length. Sometimes they do it double, sometimes they don't. I'm going to paint this doll, and sometimes paint doesn't take on all of this thread, like the silamide might be a little difficult getting thread to take. But paint to take. But I'll deal with that when I get to it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in through the back of the head. And this is only one method. I mean, like I said, you can bury knots, you can do all kinds of things. For this, I'm going to come out just down below this eye. I forgot to do my knot. So see, that's what happens when you don't do the knot. The thread, even with the knot, just pulls right on through. Get some of my stuff out of the way. Okay, so there I got my knot in. I'm going back down. Through here, whoops, not into the cheek. I'm sorry for the shadows. I'm trying to get down below the eye, close to the seam line, because the eyes are fairly close together. And I don't want her nose to be part of her eyes. Alright, so I came out. Let me see, I'll try coming in a little bit. She's white, so it might not be that easy. Alright, so thread coming out right here. And I'm just going to go back down in. I'm going to scoop, go down, and scoop some of that polyfill up towards the bridge of the nose. And then I'm going to try to come out about the same distance on this other side. And basically what we're going to do is pull this tight. Now she's going to grab a hold. It's probably painful. And then we're going to go back down in on this side, just up a few threads above where we just came out. And we're going to try to scoop up a little more filling and go out just above that stitch that we started with. And what we're doing is trying to form a bridge of her nose. Okay, now I'm going to stop talking so I can focus on this a little bit. And fight her arms and everything else. There we go. She's trying to help me. I think she's anxious to be on her way to Jay too. Sometimes when you're needle sculpting, you have to kind of just see how things are working and go with the flow. Get a feel for when to pull it tight and when you're just moving to another area. The good news with the Silamite thread is I'm going to come out a little bit wider down here. The good news with the Silamite thread is it's already coated, so it doesn't tangle as much as ordinary thread. Ooh. And part of it just broke. That's really unusual. That doesn't usually happen. But I'm going to continue with just one length because it should be okay. Actually, it's probably going to be better off because I'm going to make nostrils down here in a minute, and I don't want the thread to be too wide. All right, so I'm going across kind of the top of her nose now. See if I can get her here where you can see her. So you can see that the area of her nose here, I'm moving out a little bit. I think I'm going to knot this off and redo my thread. That really bothers me. So if it bothers me, it's time to redo it, right? Not sure where this feather came from. Okay, pull it. Going back out to the back of the head. And what I'm going to do is I didn't pull them through all the way. So instead of wasting that Silamite and having to rethread and all that stuff, I'm just doing an extra knot to catch both strands. And then I'll knot it again. Talk about struggle. Sorry. I'm getting hung up on her nose now. Okay, so I'm gonna do a tailor's knot. It's kind of like a French knot. You go around your needle 3 times. Mine's a modified one because it's not letting me, so that's all right too. Okay, so all I did was re-knot that, so both strands are still together. And I'm going back in. And if you have this head stuffed, putting this needle through here can be pretty tough. Okay. I'm coming back up towards the very top of the flanges of the nose because I'm going to do a couple more stitches across just to make sure. Down a little bit and over again. Down a little bit and back. Also going down a little bit. It's kind of like a ladder stitch because you're just going back and forth, drawing this all together. Okay, when you get to the point where you kind of want to start putting those nostrils in, what you do is the thread stays on the outside So I'm actually going to have thread going around this way. And I'm going to go up into here, and then I'm going to come back out the hole, or where I went, near where I went in. Oops, not at the top of the head, just at the top of the nose. And then I'm going to make sure this thread stays out to the side. And if you want, I don't usually do this, but if you want, you can take a needle and like stick it out here. So as you pull, that thread stays, let me see, this stays out. And you kind of have a good nostril forming. So with that, I'm going to go back under the bridge of the nose and come out the other side. And then I'm going to go around this side. I really want more stuffing up there, so pull more stuffing if you have to. I can see this one really needs more stuffing too. So what you do is you go down in from the outside and you just pull it forward from inside the head. And pull that tighter. So I'm pulling the thread and I'm pulling stuffing up. And I'll show you what I do, because you're going to take a stitch over here to hold that thread on that side. So then I'm going to go back through here where I want the nostril to be. And I'm going to go back up in that other side over here. So now I'm going across. And I'm going to put my thumbnail there, because I want to keep that thread down here, because I want this to make a nostril. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a stitch here. Of course, you probably can't see because I'm trying to see. I'm going to just go back across. Okay, and I'm going to pull this back, and that makes that nostril. So then I'm going to go back down to this side, back out where my first nostril is, because I want to tighten that up too. And I'm going to grab it again. And I'm going back up the other side. Okay, camera quit. Sorry. I'll take this pin out. Okay. I'm going to just catch this thread, because right now I'm wishing I didn't do this, but this is one way of doing it. Okay. And right now I'm just working on making her make sure she's got 2 nostrils. Because witches have to have interesting noses, at least in my mind. One more time, and then we'll go back to the back of the head. Most things anchor off at the back of the head, though. At least the way I do them. You can do it any way that works for you. right now. Okay, I'm going to pull that tight. I'm going to take a stitch back here. And then I'm going to make a knot. Try to make sure this is pulled as tight as I can get it. Okay. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut my thread. Now you can, I mean, if you have a long enough thread, you could probably do it all at once. But that's what her nose is looking like. And let me see if I can find my viewfinder. And that's what the nostrils look like. So she has two eyes close together and a nose, and it's still a pretty pointy nose, but now she can breathe because she's got two nostrils to go in that nose. Okay, now this is her chin. She has this pointy chin, but she needs a mouth. So to do the mouth, I'm going to thread a new length of Ceramide onto my needle, because that I always like to make sure I have enough thread. And it's probably, you know, a wingspan, maybe a little more, and then I double it. Not the wingspan, though. I just doubled the thread. Okay, this time I will try to remember to make the knot in the back of her head. Okay, this time I'm just going to go pretty much same spots. Now for the mouth, if you want her to smile, I'm just making the knot. If you want her to smile, when you hit these corners here of her mouth, you're going to pull it, you're going to go through the head and pull it up towards the top of the face, and that's her head, and that is going to give her kind of cheeks. So let me see if I can find a spot for my needle to come out. Whoop. Nope. And the way it is the corner in anatomy, the corner of your mouth is about the same as the pupil of your eye. So where your pupil is pretty much where the corner of your mouth is going to be. Again, unless you are doing a different kind of proportion, and that is perfectly fine too. So what I'm aiming for, I think that's the hardest part, is coming out in the right spot, is right about there, because that's going to be the pupil of her eye, and directly down from there I'm trying to get my needle out. So I'm going to pull this through, and then I'm going to go a little bit up from where I came out, and I'm going to try to go right back out. Like this time I'm pretty much, she's caught in my shirt. Get out of there. I'm trying to go pretty much back out the top of her head. So I'm going to pull this after I untangle all of my tools and her arm. And I'm just going to pull this back out. And let's see. So as I pull the top here, you can see this is indenting right there. Okay, So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down through her top of her head, and I'm going to try to come out equal distance, other pupil, other side, for the other corner of her mouth, while keeping it in frame so you can see what I'm doing. And that's about good. Okay, so she's got that. And now I'm going to go back up to the top of her head. And I'm going to give it a pull. And that's her mouth. Well, the mouth area right there. And then there are other things that you can do. I'm going to take a knot. I'm going to take a stitch up here at the top of her head and pull this tight because I want it to stay tight. I'm going to do a couple of wraps. Pull it through. I'm trying to keep it tight. Let's see, my bigger needle here. I'm going to pull this down over the top of that needle. And then I'm going to keep pulling the needle up as I pull the thread down. And that will just help keep the tension on the thread so that her mouth, keeps some semblance of tension. So there's her face. Now if little things happen, like you can see the furrow up here, that's really going to be hidden by her hair and her hat. But say you had one down in here, you can accentuate that with thread, kind of the same way you do the eyes and the mouth, and make it so she's got a wrinkled brow. You could do extra pulls and give her dimples, like out here. You can do all kinds of things. The sky is really the limit. For now, I'm going to satisfy myself with this. You can also go from here to here and leave thread on the outside, which would actually give her kind of lips. But since I'm going to paint this, I'm not going to worry too much about it. This just gives me a general guideline, suggestion. So that is needle sculpting kind of 101. I hope that that was helpful. I will come back. Well, I don't know. Maybe I will just cut this thread. I'm going to take another couple of stitches just to make sure that everything is nice and secure, because I am going to needle felt some mohair onto the switch, and when I do that, the felting needles will go through this muslin and into the polyfill, which means it will be hitting these threads that I'm using to sew. But it should all kind of, felt together. All the fibers should hook up and be homogeneous. Okay, that's a knot. Taking it down this way. See? Waving goodbye. Okay. Thread down. Pull. All right, I'm going to clip the thread now in the back of her head. And now I'm going to thread a shorter needle. I think I might go to this 2-inch needle that I showed at the beginning of this segment. I'm not sure how I'm going to upload this yet. If it's all going to be one long thing and you can pause it and fast forward it as you wish, or if I do it in parts. It depends how long it is and how long it's going to take me to upload it. Okay, all I did was knot the thread again, same thread. And this was just the extra because I still had a pretty good length from doing the mouth. I hope that she shows up good enough and that you were able to see enough of this. But from her profile, this is what she looks like now. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her hand. And this isn't going to be anything really detailed. This is just going to kind of pull, I hope, some of this stuff together. So what I'm doing here is I'm just running through, pulling it through. Now I want this knot to be sunk. So what you do is you hold tension on your thread and you put the needle on one side of the knot and then on the other side of the knot, and it kind of loosens up the fibers of the muslin. Oh, you don't want to go all the way through. I'll try that again. Okay, going through. Shouldn't even have to do much this time. There. So the knot is sunk into the inside the hand. And all I want to do is I want to take a few stitches and kind of pull the palm of this hand together a little bit. Now I could put lace on it, and I may just do that and give her like mitts, you know, lace gloves. So that may be something I do too. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over a few stitches from where this thread comes out, or through a few threads from where this thread comes out. And I'm going to take a little stitch, grab a little bit of filling, and come out a little ways. And what this will probably I'm going to go back towards this and try to come out about the same spot. And I may not do this at all. Who knows? Right now I'm just doing a running stitch, and if you can't tell, I am making this up as I go along, which is something that I do frequently. That's one thing I like about doll making, is it is a creative process, and you do your own thing. And anybody who tells you otherwise, oh, I would say they don't understand creativity. Okay, so right now I'm just going to grab a couple of threads and come over a couple of threads on across the palm. And then I'm behind the viewfinder. I am kind of doing a mattress stitch or a ladder stitch, and I'm kind of shortening the distance between one side of this hand and the other by sucking up the fabric into a line that's going to go down her hand. So now I'm going to come back. Let me see. Let me try to get in a little closer without blurring everything out. Come on. No, I don't think my camera's going to focus. Oh, there it goes. I don't know that that's any closer than it was. But okay. So right now I'm on this side. So now I am going to come over here and grab a little nip. And I'm going to pull that. And then I'm going to come down. I'm never going to go backwards. I always have to be further down in the direction I'm going than my last thread, but on the opposite side. So my other thread is coming out right here. So now I'm going to go to the other side and grab a little piece of thread, or a couple of threads of muslin on the opposite ridge on the other side of the hand. And I don't want a whole big piece there, about like that. Just a couple of little threads. And I'm going to pull that tight. And then I'm going to come to this side again and grab a nip and go back to this side and grab a bit. And then I'm going to go back over here and grab some. And then I'm going to come out here a little ways because I want to start making the wrist area. And I'm going to grab some and pull it in. And you can see how the hand is all of a sudden like becoming a little more shaped. So let me come down here and pull this. So I'm coming out on this side of the hand. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab a piece over here and pull. And then I'm going to come over here and grab a little piece and pull. I'm going to come further out towards the seam and grab a piece. And I'm going to pull that in. And now I'm very close to this seam here. And I don't want to get any closer to that. And there is a fold of fabric right there. And I'm just going to grab that. And I'm pulling that. So now I'm just going to tie it off. So I'm pulling it tight. And if you wanted to, you could even wrap the thread around this to make the wrist more obvious. I'm not going to do that. I think this is fine. I do need to take a stitch and get a knot in there though. And then kind of bury my thread. And what I'll do is I went back under. Gotta make sure both of these threads are pulled through all the way. There. And then what I'm going to do is just go back through the hand all together, just like this, and come back out up here, pull the thread through, and give it a snip. And it goes back inside the hand. And you can see now her wrist is more in control. And if I open up her fingers, the hand isn't quite as blousy, but I will probably put some lace or something on it. But she could hold a wand or a broom or a guitar, whatever. And now, if you look at them together, you can see the difference. I mean, they did look different to begin with, but and these fingers, you know, the wire went into these, I think, a little easier than it did into these. But now I will make this palm a little bit better, and then I will move on. So let me do that, and I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, a lot of this is going to be upside down to you, but I need to be able to see what I'm doing. And right now we're going to talk about painting, because I like to paint my cloth doll bodies. and then dress them with cloth. And I really have no direction on this, except I want to paint it. And I'll be back, the dogs. Okay, well, I was thinking that I could show this whole process, but I'm thinking I'm not going to show this whole process. I'm going to paint this doll, and you can paint with anything. The sky is the limit. You can use regular acrylic paint, you know, watered down, not watered down. You can use watercolors. You could use your sprays if you wanted. The only thing I will say is, like, for the eyes, I will take some gesso and I'll just like block out the eye area so that I have some white in there. May not stay white, but I'll just put a little white in there. And then it doesn't go right, you know, inside lines, but that's okay because it's all going to be painted. I just want some general white here to give light around the eye area. So that's what I'm doing. And I will probably do the legs with gesso and the boot area. And when I am done, I will come back and show. I have the dressing process to go through, picking fabrics and things. The only specific thing was that Jay likes lilac and different colors like that. So I have this paint lilac dust, and it's just an apple barrel. Oh, it's a plaid acrylic paint, and I will try to make sure that I use a little of this. So I will see you soon. I hope that this inspires you to make one of your own. Hi, I wanted to come back, and I've been working on my witch doll, and I just want to say that if you're new to doll making or interested in doll making, Susanna Oroyan has several books, and they're still available as ebooks on Amazon. I had the pleasure of meeting Susanna once at a doll workshop, and she was a very wonderful woman. She even signed one of my books. I don't think it was this one, but she passed away. I think she had breast cancer, and so she hasn't been with us in quite a few years, but her books are still out there, and they are wonderful. And it covers, see if I can fit it in the frame. It covers all things doll making, and like this is the anatomy of a doll, and it's just one called dressing a doll and finishing the figure and all kinds of things. And these are really fabulous books, very informative, fun to read, great patterns, wonderful ideas. So this is one of her books, and it's Susanna Oroyan. She's really great. Sorely missed by the doll community. But where I am right now is I've been working on the witch, and let me pull her out here and I'll show you where she stands. There are her feet, and I've painted on shoes and stockings. I've used some sparkly watercolor and tinted some of her skin, and I've already signed it because I usually forget to, so that's just in case. Her knickers are actually going to cover that, so I may wind up writing it again somewhere else. I don't know. But, so sparkly, cheap watercolor. And right now it's just stickles for fingernails. I usually put some 3D liquid lacquer and make the fingernails over the color. And then this is what her face looks like. And this is again sparkly watercolor, fine point marker, and acrylic paint. Yeah, so that's what she looks like. And so where I am is I was going to make the knickers because my doll needs knickers. And this book, The Doll's Dressmaker, the complete pattern book, is fabulous. And it's by Venus A. Dodge. And this is, it says it's over 120 designs with actual size patterns. And that is so true. I mean, the dolls that she designs for are kind of your traditional dolls, but she gives you so much information. Like that's a pattern for dungarees. But a lot of these are simple shapes. And once you have the idea, the sky's the limit. Like she doesn't dress for witches in here. These are just traditional dolls. But I'm making a cloth witch, which is nothing like a traditional doll. Well, it has 2 arms and 2 legs and a head and a body. But totally different perspective. So anyway, this is her pattern for knickers. Very straightforward, very simple. She actually, back a little ways, it talks about the knickers. And all I do is I take a piece of photocopy paper and I laid it on and I traced it. Now I know that my doll is bigger this way than these knickers. So what I did was I measured my doll out and I took this pattern and I just added that much to it. And all I did for that was I made the top mark and I made the center mark, and then I drew this top line and I came straight down to the center here and I drew this bottom line and traced around the sides and the crotch area, because this is where the crotch comes together. This is actually the side and the leg, because this is the center back and this is the center front. And it tells you, you know, cut one, flip, and cut another one. And so it's all very straightforward. So those are 2 books that I highly recommend. Well, actually it's several books, because Susanna Aroran has many books, 5 or 6. And Venus A. Dodge, I think the only one I have of hers is The Doll's Dressmaker. But it is so complete. And if you make traditional doll clothes, this is the perfect book for you. So anyway, I have my 2 pieces cut for the knickers. So I just have my fabric, which is dogs, because the person I'm making this for has, I think, 2 dogs. And she loves them very much. And it's black. And I usually use a white chalk pencil, but the first pencil I came to was a Derwent watercolor in white. So I traced around my pattern piece, flipped it over, and traced it a second time. I'm going to cut it out with my pinking shears, because it'll help take care of my curve. And it also makes the edges a little bit more non-fray, because I'm not going to complete the seams. I'm not going to do French seams inside. Nobody's going to take these clothes off. This is not a doll that's going to be dressable. The clothes will be permanently affixed. So, but this is just some more doll making information I thought I would share. So, if I come up with some more stuff before I am finished, I will be back. Hi. I just wanted to come back and show you how the switch ended up. She's all finished. I finished her earlier this morning. She is Hetty the Happy Hag, and she's been embellished. She has her black witch's hat. She has purple and brown and black mohair, and she's got some burgundy feathers, yes, feathers. She's got a little tattooing on her head, eyes. She has her beauty moles, and she has an acrylic flower. She has rhinestones and a lace choker. She's got some fun fur trim with beads and sequins that were hand sewn. She has a contrasting sleeve with more sequins. She has articulated fingers in this hand, complete with fingernails. She holds a quartz crystal with some amethyst in it. That will come out. That's a real crystal. And in this bag, this is her hex bag. Not really a hex, but it's got polymer clay discs that I made. And those discs, let's see, this one goes like this, and it's a druid rune, and that stands for good health. And then there's this one, which stands for healing. And they're made of polymer clay and various painting techniques. And they go in her bag. And she carries that with her, because she is full of all kinds of good energy for health and healing. And let's see, her vest is short in the front with the trim, and it goes around to a long vest in the back. She has, the inside of her vest is a contrasting color. She has a black witch's garb dress on with purple trim. She has a long black skirt with black lace. Her underskirts are tulle. She has black netting tulle. She has a finer lavender tulle, and then she has also the fine spring green type tulle. She has legs. You saw this in the raw state, but that's what her legs look like finished. She has knickers with bows and crystals and little acrylic flowers. Striped hose with polka dots, green trim on her shoes, and her shoes are sparkly. Yep. So she is all ready to go to my friend and help to keep her company and keep her spirits up while she recovers. And I hope that you enjoyed seeing the switch in her, from her pattern to being assembled. And I know I didn't show her dressing techniques, but dolls can be kitted out in so many different ways. I did show Venus A. Dodge's doll patterning book, which is, of course, where I got the pattern for the vest and for the knickers. It's one of the best books going as far as that goes. And then Susanna Arroyan is one of the best doll makers as far as her books go, and I highly recommend them. So I appreciate you watching my video. Thank you for joining me, and until next time,